Hey guys, it's Ross going on the Space Couch. Today I'm going to be reviewing this, The Mechanical by Ian Tregillis, book 1 of the Alchemy Wars. Right, now this is set in the early 20th century, say round about 1925, 250 years after Christian Huygens has invented mechanical men, known as Clakkers, in what has since become known as the Miracle Year for the Dutch anyway. And since then, the Dutch have used their army of Clakkers to conquer most of the world. What a surprise. And basically only like a France in exile, which essentially is like, say, what Quebec is now, is all that's left to stand up against them. It's called Marseille in the West. The worst fear of the Dutch is a clacker going rogue, or anyone figuring out the secrets of how to build clackers. When they're first born, as it were, they're immediately placed under all sorts of alchemical obligations that essentially mean they have no free will of their own, can't disobey any orders given to them from what is known as the brasswork throne, right down to whoever holds the individual lease of that clacker. You have to follow orders, mind-numbing pain if you don't. When a clacker does go rogue, it must be captured as soon as possible and destroyed publicly, lest it start to spread dangerous messages about free will and the nature of the soul that conflict with what the Dutch alchemists have been saying for centuries. Now, one of these clackers called Jax, and that's the shortened version of his name, that all have very long names like, say, Raxacora Philippatorius, that sort of thing, for instance. So, Jax, this clacker, he sees one of his compatriots being destroyed who has gone rogue. And although all clackers yearn to be free, they're never able to express this due to all the spell work upon them. Any sort of hint and, rogue, heretic, he must die. You know, that sort of thing. Now, however, a French spy who is actually playing the role of a Dutch vicar, but he's actually a Catholic priest, heretic like I said. Now, he gives Jax this ancient telescope that was owned by, I think it was either Descartes or Kepler, I forget which. And he asks him to transport this to New Amsterdam, which is New York in our world, for onward delivery essentially to the resistance. Although Jax doesn't know that, of course. Now, however, this telescope is actually damaged, but there's this lump of odd glass inside that's fell out of the tube, rattled around Jax's innards because he's been holding it inside himself for protection. But this has somehow released him from all of his obligations and gazers, as they called. That means he's now a rogue. So he has to try and hide this from the family who own him, or lease him rather, during the journey to New Amsterdam, which is by airship. But of course, it all comes out sooner or later. He has to try and save either the daughter of the family or this piece of furniture from damage, and a normal clacker would be able to do both at the same time. Jax, however, he goes to save the girl, and he's in a world of hurt. So he has to try and flee for New France, and he's pursued by an army of clacker soldiers and humans as well. In the meantime, back in Holland, there's a general roundup of spies, and the priest, Mr. Visser is his name, is caught. After some various questioning, they turn him into a human clacker. Brain surgery, they put some sort of lump of glass, I guess, in him. And he then is subject to all those spellwork obligations, unable to tell anyone of his plight, you know. Has all the superhuman strength when necessary to follow his orders, which is essentially to undermine everything that he actually believes in or believed in. Now, I guess he can be made to believe in anything. Right, so France in the West, Marseille's in the West rather, they have managed to capture a military clacker, as well as playing host to a female rogue. They are actually male or female, the clackers. That I'm not quite sure how they choose, but there is a difference between them. Now, the French, the only weapons they really have against the clackers is a special type of paint, like epoxy. Throw like a water balloon, as it were, full of this at it, and it just gums it all up. But you know what paint and epoxy are like, they're very sticky. That stops them from moving. Now, however, one of the inner circle of the French king has sold out to the Dutch. And the latest batch of epoxy actually, when they throw it on it to like, because it's starting to break free a little bit, and they want to like keep it secured against this wall where it's attached, throw this on it, and it dissolves the epoxy, and the clacker goes, it doesn't go rogue, it goes on a rampage, slaughtering as many people as possible. In the aftermath of that, the top spy of the French, who has inherited the name Talleyrand back from when France first went into exile, as the great spy master of the time, I suppose, she's exiled, and she eventually makes her way to New Amsterdam. In total disgrace, no one wants anything to do with her. All of her possessions have been sold to cover the cost of burying all the people who died, basically, during the Clakker attack, when the military clacker went off on one, basically. Now, in New Amsterdam, Jax is trying to escape from that city, obviously. Now, it's not just these mechanical men who are clackers, men and women who are clackers. There are other types of clackers. One of the airships, for instance, is a clacker. There's this giant new ocean liner that's in Old Amsterdam, is a clacker. Very mysterious, you know. None of the other clackers are able to communicate with it. I assume that's going to play a bigger role in the second and the third books. So anyway, Jax is able to free this dirigible clacker from its obligations, and they try to escape. But the other clackers attack, of course, military. They get shot down, crash and burn, of course. The dirigible is killed, obviously, but Jax isn't. Now, being chased across the countryside with everyone closing in on him, his only option is to actually return to New Amsterdam, you know, the last place to think of looking, basically. He goes into hiding there. He tries to deliver the telescope that Visser gave him to the underground resistance. It's at a bakery in Brooklyn. But it's the glass inside that is what they were wanting, obviously. He hands over the telescope, but then the priest Visser arrives. And because he's now like a human clacker, he essentially kills all the resistance. Now, he doesn't realise that Jax is a rogue, you know, so he just orders them not to speak of what he saw, you know. You expect any clacker given an order has to follow it. However, Visser and Jax are not the only ones scoping out this bakery in Brooklyn, which is the scene of the Underground Railroad. Talleyrand is also scoping it out. Now, once Visser has left, she and Jax cross paths, you know. They form an alliance to learn out more about the glass, what its potential is, who is the French traitor and all of that. And she is actually the only human who realises that the clackers have got their own secret language. Because they're mechanical men, it's like tick-tock, tick-tock, you know, all that sort of thing. It's all based on the various rhythms of the ticking and the talking and all of that is their language. For instance, the customary greeting among clackers in their language is clockmaker's lie. Like we would say good morning, of course. So anyway, they form an alliance and they end up infiltrating what is known as the Forge. Now in Old Amsterdam, that is where all clackers are made, born, what have you. They're building a new one in New Amsterdam that's essentially probably just going to churn out loads of military clackers and overwhelm the French. So they can't allow that to happen. Even though Talleyrand is in total disgrace, that doesn't mean she wants her country destroyed, of course. However, while they do manage to destroy this forge in New Amsterdam, Talleyrand is captured. And she is carted off to some country estate where she very much fears she's going to get turned into a human clacker. And as she's the former spy master of the French king, how many secrets could she reveal? Jax, on the other hand, is able to infiltrate a company of soldier clackers who are en route to invade the French. He's able to keep hidden the fact he is a rogue for now. I wonder how long for. And if there's going to be a little bit of that pass the parcel of the glass stone going around, because it seems like the clacker just has to touch this stone, glass, whatever, and they're free. We shall see. There's probably more to it than that. It's rarely that easy. So anyway, this is a start of a serious trilogy, you know, and it's very promising too as starts go. It's a totally believable world, you know, and even though it's kind of set in the 1920s, it feels much more like the 17th, 18th, 19th century, you know, as a steampunky type of society is totally diverged from our timeline. For instance, in their timeline, Isaac Newton is a barely remembered scientist, you know, although it's people like Descartes who are much more well known. Obviously, he's well known in our universe as well. I think, therefore, I am. Now, he has written extensively in this universe on the nature of the soul and can clackers have them. You know, again, it's similar to his writings in our universe about free will. It promises to be a very good trilogy. I'm very much looking forward to the next book. It's called The Rising. The title alone, I think, tells you what's going to be happening. I so want the Brasswork Throne to be destroyed. The book, it held my attention from start to finish. I ripped through it in just a few days. Really good stuff. I would actually say I preferred this over his Bitter Seeds trilogy, which I think I've mentioned previously, which was all about an alternate World War II, which was also excellent. This, I think, gets the nod over that. Great stuff, it really is. Next book is out in December 2015, and I shall be reviewing it for you in due course. Anyway, guys, that was just my review of the Mechanical by Ian Tregillis. Why don't you leave me a comment or a suggestion for an upcoming book to review, subscribe to my channel, or hit that like button.